Good afternoon, everybody. This is Felipe from WonderScience, Liliana Dukanovic from WonderScience, and we are interviewing Fernanda Bajanca. She's one of the guests that we made it, and we are able to interview. So I'm gonna talk a little bit with Fernanda, and as usual, we are going to be relaxed and talk about different things in science and research. And so Fernanda, she was my colleague at the University of Lisbon. Was good old times. She played in the Tuna. I don't know the translation is an academic association, isn't it? And she was very active in this. She's very
Yeah.
active in the associative movement, and she the last things I was with the Fernanda when she was doing her PhD, sometimes with Isabel Palmeirim at
Oh, not
Universidade do
really.
Minho. It
That was
wasn't
my
it?
my first postdoc, actually. My
Your first
PhD
part
was at yeah,
with Solveig.
was at the Faculty of Sciences in Lisbon with Solveig, yeah,
Yeah,
Turnstine's daughter.
Solveig. And then I met her with a PhD. And then one of my trips, and when I was in London some times ago, I interviewed with Simon Hughes, and she did her second postdoc with Simon Hughes. It was limb development, wasn't it? Um, that you were.
No, it was on dystrophin.
Ah.
It was involving gene therapy in dystrophin on zebrafish. It was a nice project, actually. It was a while ago.
And so tell me a little bit more of the end part of your career, research and
Oh,
not
well, that
related
was the
to.
middle, not even the end. Well, so just to summarize, yes, I've done my studies in Lisbon at the Faculty of Sciences, where we studied together. Then I made an Erasmus in Paris. So I made an internship at École Normale Supérieure for a year. Then I came back to Portugal and I joined Solveig's lab at the Faculty of Sciences, and I started my PhD there a couple of years after. Um, well, I spent a few years in her lab, and then I went to Minho, to Isabel's lab, where I've done, well, 3 years of a postdoc, and then I went to London to Simon Hughes' lab with that
And you got
project.
a baby, and you had
By the end, I got a baby in London.
I
Born
met
in
you in
London.
London. You were like, oh my God, this is
I was
another reality.
I had him already, or I was heavily pregnant. I don't remember anymore. Yeah,
you had them already, and you were saying,
I had.
oh, it was so strange being pregnant. Sometimes I was feeling in another reality.
Yeah, it's tough to work while pregnant. At least for me, it was. Yeah. Yeah, after London, then I came to Toulouse, and I'm in Toulouse since. So I've been in Toulouse since the end of 2013 already. And in Toulouse, I've done first a postdoc at University Paul Sabatier. And since last year, I'm working at the hospital, in the pediatric hospital, children's hospital, doing clinical research. So I went out of academia and I started a new challenge on an environment that is completely different, actually. It's
Do you
research,
like
but
it? Is it exciting? Is it
I
different?
do like it. It's quite different. It's very
Yeah.
different. I don't do lab work anymore, and actually that was my aim, not to do lab work. So fine.
No miss
Um,
pipetting or
yeah, it is exciting. I'm learning a lot of new things. And I think that after a while in academia, I had the feeling that I was not learning a lot more as new skills. We start doing always the same thing, and that's why I was getting bored of lab work, of bench work. And changing to a new field obliged me first to study a new subject. So I made a post graduation because, of course, this involves a lot of ethics and,
Yeah.
well, knowing
That,
the laws. So
right.
Uh,
I made a post graduation
Another
for
question
starting.
that I want to ask you is, what you had a career with ups and downs. Everything seems up now, but what was your
Uh,
driving force in being
well,
in? I'm sure that sometimes I know because I felt the same, and Lillian has felt the same. We feel, "Ah, I'm not gonna make it. This is gonna be tough. I didn't get the paper accepted, because you published in development and you had really nice publications. And what was your driving force? What do you think is your skill that made you so perseverant?
well, to start with, you're mentioning that all looks up, but I think that most of the people that are going to listen to this interview, they are going to be young researchers, students, and at that point, we all have the feeling that everybody succeeded, and you only see the positive side, you only see the ups. But of course, we all have ups and downs, and we all have obstacles in our careers, and not all is brightful all the time. No, that's not true. We all fail a lot. I think that we fail more than what we succeed. Of course, we don't present our failures, we all present our successes. So do keep that in mind. And I think that a lot of students stress, and there's a lot of mental health problems in academia, and I think this contributes to that, to think that if I'm uh, having this failure period now, I'm a failure. But we all have those, and we have those more often than the good moments. Now,
Yeah.
what made me go through it and reach where I am now, I think it's in my case, the driving force was that I've always done only exactly what I liked. I'm very bad at doing things that I don't like, and in a way, this is good, of course, but in another way, it was bad for my career, because at many times I took decisions in my career that were not good, actually, to, to proceed the career path that I would wish. But I took those decisions because that's what I was feeling like doing at the time, and that would allow me to do what I liked, regardless of the impact that would have in my career. So I think that's what took me here, with the ups and downs. It's maybe what I value, and we all do what we value the most. We act according to what we value the most. For me, well, I can't do something that I don't like. It was always a problem. So that was my driving force.
And Fernanda, now that you're talking about, how difficult it might be the path through graduate school, especially, I always, for example, when people ask me, young students, should I do PhD? I always actually say, yes, please do a PhD. Not because you want to be professor, because you will be cool or whatever. It's because there's certain things that you learn, skills that you acquire, that will really help you do anything in life, I feel like. That's kind of how I see it. So I was wondering, what is it for you? So what are the two things you would say you've learned, certain principles or attitude that really helped you after graduate school to go through anything, to change a job, to be what you are now professionally?
Yeah, I do agree with you. And I think that throughout my PhD, I became quite independent as a PhD student should become if all goes well, right? And I had to deal by my own, even if I had a very present supervisor, very helpful, but she was letting me be independent. Um, and I had to solve a lot of problems. I had to deal with solving whatever was coming up at any moment in the depths. And I think that gave a flexibility that I used throughout my career path. And then every time I changed to a new lab, I was starting a new subject, as very often is the case, and I would have to relearn the field and readapt. And also because that's what I like. I don't like to do always the same thing. So that had the capacity to adapt was very helpful, and it is still, of course. Now that I changed to something that is quite different, I see how helpful it was to develop that ability.
And nowadays, I think that adaptability is very important. I think we're becoming more global, more interdisciplinary, and all kinds of things you have to know and learn. And I agree. I completely agree that the adaptability that you learn through your PhD is really valuable.
Yeah, yeah, it
Oh,
was
a
the
question.
base, and it was quite a good base. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question that I have, I don't know. We talk about Solveig. A lot of people that see these interviews know Solveig and Isabel Palmeri, um, and we talk about Simon Hughes. Do you have mentors or or not mentors, or people that you or your husband and boyfriend that help you out, that you think, oh, I can rely on him or on her. I For me is a role model. um or or even historical persons that uh, for example, you are a Marie Curie alumni, and you are a vice chair of the alumni. So maybe you have mentors, or it's difficult question because there's a lot of people that goes through our academic life. And so do you want to say, or a sentence, or someone that in a precise and in a key moment help you with a sentence or something like that?
I think that at every moment there was more than one people that were helpful, that were role models, and that I owe a lot to these people. Um, it's difficult to point out one because there will be a lot others that
Yeah.
will stay out, and it's not fair. Um, there were plenty of people, some very close, some that may not even know that they were that important, that influential while they were. Uh, the Marie Curie Alumni Association was very important. It's still quite important on my path, on my career. And actually, I thank to that association where I am now, reaching where I am now, because at the point where I started doubting about whether I would want to stay in academia, and more than that, whether I would be able to stay in academia, because it's not only a matter of wanting, we all want, but it's quite difficult. Um, at that point, I specifically joined or became active in the Marie Curie alumni to kind of develop a bit my CV. That was the initial aim. I realized that I needed to have some more variety on my CV if I was to look for something outside the academia. It started because of that. And when I went to the first General Assembly annual conference of the MCAA, I met, my colleagues, a lot of brilliant bright researchers from all fields, from all over the world, that
Oh, we got stopped. Fernanda?
Oh yeah.
Fernanda? Oh, I think we have a problem. um, so, Fernanda? Oh, Liliana.
It's okay. We can maybe get out and come back in, and then later we will add it to this.
Okay.
She realized maybe she will come back in.
Fernanda? Fernanda?
Sim, eu estava a ouvir, mas de facto a imagem parou.
Parou. Sim. Então, tenta entrar outra vez. Está bem?
Ok, espera só um bocadinho.
Está bem. We had some...
Espera lá, mas isto está a tentar entrar, mas acho que não está a dar. Espera lá. Deixa-me clicar de novo, fechar tudo e clicar de novo.
Sorry for this interruption. It's a very nice interview, but we are having some technical problems. But nowadays, with the pandemic, Liliana, you are more aware about Corona. Ask. Okay. Ask Fernanda. So that's your field of expertise.
I want to ask her about this, policy working group she's working on. That's really
And the ideas.
because I think now with the pandemic, that's a big buzzword, no, policy and governmental measures and everything that has to translate science
Oh,
to.
how was the election? I wasn't able to see last night. I was.
It's still not finished. I mean, the
Really?
voting is finished, but they're still counting the votes, and it's gonna take a week at least to have the final. But at the moment, Biden is a little bit ahead of Trump, so that's good news, I guess. But there's still some states that they haven't counted the votes that are kind of battle states, and it can still change. So let's see.
I was a little bit worried. I was watching TV last night, and it was and they were like almost.
Yeah, I mean that's what people are saying. Even if Biden wins, the fact that Trump was so close is still very depressing, and I think it's still going to leave the country very divided. And very, still with a huge population of Americans that voted Trump. So, that's not going to be gone after these elections. The fact that there's still a lot of pro-Trump people, and that's pretty scary.
And Liliana, what do you think about Portugal? Our measures compared with.
I have to say I'm quite impressed. I think Portugal is doing a very good job. I think first of all, the politicians, are united in in their challenge to deal with the pandemic. So that's very good. I think it's being handled quite well, and I think the fact that Portugal wasn't so badly affected proves that. But
Fernanda is coming out.
She's
Please ask her. It's coming. Okay.
Okay, can you hear?
You're back.
Yeah, it's great.
Sorry about that. I changed computer. I think that the problem is that I was using the computer from work,
Okay.
and it blocks Zoom, and I forgot about that. At times it blocks
Okay.
Zoom because the network
Right, right.
is different.
Okay.
Sorry. So I don't know where the video stopped.
Um,
So,
well, you were telling us a little bit about the influence that the Marie Curie working group and the volunteering experience had on you, and
yeah,
how important it was to do something outside of academia
yeah.
too.
I think I was saying actually that when I went to the first meeting at the MCAA, I met a lot of people that were brilliant researchers working in all different areas, not only on academic research, but industrial research or pharmaceuticals, or nothing to do with research per se. So either managing or communication or whatever, name it. Um, so these were the people that had all had Marie Curie fellowship, so that were deemed to be the future leaders in research. And actually, I was quite surprised that so many of them were not doing academic research, which was what, well, in our perspective of academic researchers, is research. And it's what we can do because we don't know anything else.
Yeah.
So that opened for me a lot of possibilities. And I started seeing a lot of things that I would enjoy doing. Um, so I started getting more and more involved, getting involved with science policy. I chaired the science policy working group for 2 years. So managing a team, managing projects, and I realized this is what I like to do, managing projects. It's not the bench work. It's all related with what we do in the lab, but the bench work. So the writing of projects and the analysis of the data, um, everything but the bench work.
Right.
So I found out that actually this area of managing clinical research had all what I was searching for, and that's how I ended there. Then in
Right.
plus, I got some funding from the MCAA, um, which allowed me to pay for this post graduation on clinical research. So I have a lot to own to to the
Marie
Marie
Curie.
Curie Alumni Association. So that funding that I got, actually, I got it because I got a prize. Every year, there's some prizes that the MCAA gives to members. Um, there's some career prizes, and there's a prize for outstanding contributor, which I
Mhm.
got last year.
Mm.
And the prize is monetary, but it's only given for career development. So they don't give you the money, they cover expenses related with career development. So
Oh,
I had to think, okay, what am I going to do with this
okay.
money? And searching around, I found this nice post graduation that I could do online. It's from a university in France, but you can do it at a distance.
Mhm.
So that's
What,
how
what
it's
is the
how
name of the
I
program?
what.
What is
Uh,
the
so it's what they call a diplôme universitaire. So
okay?
basically, it's a post
Okay.
graduation from the Université de Caen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's I don't remember the exact name because it's a long name, but it's aiming at people that either do already clinical research and need a certification, or professionals that
Mm-hmm.
like us, that do research or something around, that want to change career but already have some professional activity
Yeah.
that is related enough to give you some background.
Yeah, I think that's I guess the if I were undergraduate student listening to you say all this, I guess the conclusion would be, you know, go out, open your eyes and explore different things. And I remember when I was doing my PhD, the student association we had was organizing lectures from people that are related to science but are not researchers. You know, science communication, patenting, clinical research, all these things you can do. I know it's difficult when you're doing your PhD and all the research to see these different opportunities, but I agree it's very, very important, and it can open, you can find some talents that you didn't know you had, or things you, so I totally agree. But back to Marie Curie experience, I'm dying to ask you something. Your experience with the policymaking group, that to me, you know, and Philippa as sort of science communicators, I think that's very closely related. I know that sort of the core of policy making is really how we scientists communicate our science to those policy makers. And it's a complicated thing. It's not just
Yes.
just sitting in front of them and telling them what we do.
Yes.
There are a lot of factors that play in. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience? What is, you know, what does it take
Yeah.
really for policymaking to
Yeah.
happen, and how do we, what should we scientists take as a responsibility?
Yeah.
I think we do play a big part. We should assume bigger responsibility. Perhaps science communication is one of those. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that
Yeah,
aspect.
I learned a lot, really. It was a very good experience. Um, I was leading a group of, around 30, 40 people. And among these people, some of them are professionals working on science policy. They are policy officers at institutes, universities, associations that deal with science. So I learned really a lot. You don't talk the same language, actually, as policymakers. So you need to know how to pass the message. You don't simply tell your results like you do in science. They will never understand it. There's a whole sort of, let's say, textbook to do it. So for those who want to impact policy making, the best, I would say, is to approach an association, to approach others that know how to do it, and learn with them and do it with them. It's difficult also to alone influence whatever. It's not a single case that will convince the policymakers. It's a group that can really have impact. If you say we all agree on this, it's completely different than saying, oh, look, I've made this single study that showed this. It will not be convincing. Then the type of policy influencing that we were trying to do and that we do is more general because of the type of association we are. So it's a lot focused on the MSCA projects, let's say fellows, because this is our membership, but also a bit more general, for example, on science funding. So at this moment, probably you heard that there are big cuts proposed to the funding of research for the coming years in Europe. So there's a lot of associations, including us, that are trying to change these and to convince the countries, the member countries, that and the policymakers that we do need, especially in the current situation, we do need strong research.
Exactly.
One more question, Fernanda. Do you have plans to come back to Portugal eventually?
Not at all in the near future. Well,
Liliana, she's here in Portugal, and she's quite really happy, and she's
Yeah, in love with this country.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I like the country a lot. I already lived there for a few years, so now I'm experiencing another reality.
yeah, I think that's
Uh,
normal that we scientists end up somewhere, and then you never know. Maybe you will go back to your country, maybe not.
yeah, that's it. No, for the moment, for the time being, I don't have any plans to go back there. Um, my partner would be more willing to go there than me. He's French. Um, maybe we do like to be in other places, in
Yes, yes, it's
exotic
more
places.
exciting.
So
It's different. It's new. Yeah.
yeah, it's also because I have a young kid. Um, so for the time being, I think it's better for him to be here. It's the whole situation. Career-wise, I just changed jobs last year. I'm happy at the moment. So it's, let's say, altogether professional and personal
Mm.
situation. I don't feel like going back now to Portugal. I wouldn't say that at some point in the future I wouldn't go back.
Mm.
I think there's opportunities wherever you search for them.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you do want, you will find a way,
Mm.
but maybe you will need to adapt because it's all a matter of priorities. The
Mm.
decisions we take in life have to be based on our priorities. And if the priority is to go back to Portugal, maybe you will have to adapt and you will not get that professorship. You will have to get something else.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
so
That's a good point. That's it. That's a nice piece of advice also, I think, for young people that will be listening to this. Philippe, I'm showing here there's 5 minutes that we have
yeah,
remaining.
5 minutes remaining. Do you have a question, another question to ask Fernanda, or
I think we can close with the last question we had in mind, that she tells us a funny story about her work. But if you have
it
something
was exactly
oh,
what I'm thinking about. Tell us a funny story. We need funny stories now.
we need to cheer
oh,
up this situation this month.
I don't remember any funny story right now. Actually, it's true that you had asked me to think about it. And I couldn't.
Or tell
I
us
think
about a disaster experiment or
I
something
think
like
I take my work too seriously. That's what this means.
No, someone asked you. For me, for example, I was in the lab and I was meeting a very important senior scientist, and I was like, "Oh, how are you? I'm Felipa." And then my supervisor said, "Don't be so relaxed. It's so important." And he published in Nature and in Science. And you said, "Who are you?" And I met him and said, "What's your name? Excuse me, I didn't understand." I was like, oh, this is another scientist, and he was like a head or um, um, a dean and something like that. And I was, but I usually do these things.
Yeah, that could be totally me. I never know who is anybody. I forget the names, and I'm very bad to remember faces and names.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have plenty of funny stories, but and in London, you treat everybody as you. Here in Portugal, is the
yeah,
professor and
yeah.
the
Still
I
have problems
have that
adapting.
I
Yeah,
have that problem when I try to speak Portuguese. I speak also, so for me, additional issues that I speak Spanish. My boyfriend is Spanish. So at home we speak in Spanish. And of course, since Spanish is close to Portuguese, I tend to kind of speak something like Portuñol, no? But in Spain, people are very informal. So you will never use the third person form, almost never.
yeah.
So I'm just kind of leading that, using that same concept,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work here. So a lot of times I feel so bad because I tell.
Well, don't. I think that the people know that we are foreigners and they kind of forgive
Yeah,
us.
Portuguese people are very tolerant in general, but I still
Yeah.
feel bad because, and I try, and I try to like stop and think and use the
Well,
você
I'm in
form.
France. It's the third language, so of course, even if I'm fluent by now, well, it's not my first, not my second language. And after being in London for like 5-6 years, yeah, I feel the same as you, going back to a country where you have the third person, the formal.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's
yeah,
nice. I think it's nice
it's
to
difficult at times.
show a little bit of respect, at least to
Yeah.
people who don't know.
Here, it's very common that the people ask if they can, they call it tutoyer, meaning treating you as an informal way, in an informal way. And I'm very bad at that. I never asked, and I just start doing it without asking because I'm not used to it and I never think of it.
It's
But
okay.
I never had any problem, you know. I think.
Okay, we have less than a minute. I think it's enough.
So
to
let me thank you.
Big thank you and good luck with all the work. And yeah, thanks a lot for your time.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It was very nice. Sorry for the technical problems. I think it was all on my side.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lil. We talk little about next.
Thanks, Fernanda.
Next.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Ciao, ciao. See you. See you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.